I'm on my way to the gym to go do a quick workout this morning, and then we're going to be doing something very exciting. I'm taking you guys to come look at an apartment with me. Basically, there is this program in Israel called Pinui, which means evacuation construction. And what that means is that when there is a really old building, this program allows people who live in like a tiny little old building, maybe like with 6 apartments or something like that, 6 or 8 apartments in it, that's pretty short, to then pair up with a developer who agrees to knock down the building, build a brand new one in its place, give them each a bigger apartment with like more amenities, maybe like adding balconies, adding parking places for them underground, and they get more square meters. And so the owners of the building, or each apartment in the building, can get a more valuable brand new home after the Pinui process is done. And the developer in exchange gets to like build extra floors on top, and he gets to sell those. So there is an apartment I want to go see that is supposed to go into Binui. There's already a contract available with the developer, but they haven't signed it yet. So it makes for like a really good investment. So I want to go check one out, and I'm going to take you guys along with me so you can check it out and you can see what these types of real estate opportunities in Israel can look like. Apartment that I went to go see. From the outside, you can tell that the building is quite old. There is already parking underneath the building for each apartment. Here was like the entranceway to the building, and the apartment that we looked at was on the 2nd floor out of 3 floors. As you walk into the apartment, you can instantly tell that the apartment is quite old. It definitely needs some updating. They did say that the kitchen was kind of updated somewhat recently, as were the bathrooms, but the man who lived here was an elderly man who recently passed away like a year ago, and he didn't have any children, and he left this apartment to his siblings, and they are now wanting to sell the apartment. So he was quite old, and I'm sure when he updated his kitchen and his bathrooms, he just kind of went with something pretty cheap and clean. So they're not actually like higher end of someone might expect. To the left is kind of like a utility laundry room area, and then there's sort of like a dining space and a living room as one room. You go straight into the first bedroom. This bedroom was actually quite large. It was filled with their stuff, so you can't really get a great look at it, but even with all the stuff in it, the room felt like a substantial size. Then there was a full bath. I do think that it still was not in great condition. I think the sink was quite small. I think that the tile work, I would probably wanted to replace it if the building wasn't going to get torn down and rebuilt a brand new one anyways. But that's the thing. It's like it needs work, but are you going to invest money into doing all this work when in a few years' time they're going to just knock it down and build a brand new building anyways? You know what I mean? And then you can't get such great rents for it over time, because if you don't do the work on it, then your rents are going to be lower, and then your mortgage is probably higher than your rent. So those were all the things that were going through my mind as I was going through and looking at this. But in any case, here is another little half bath. And then you have what they used as the master bedroom. It actually has 2 entrances. There's this first entrance as you're coming from the bathroom, and then there's another entranceway towards the living room, which used to just be a regular doorway, but prior owner, he had mobility issues and he opened this up bigger so he could fit his wheelchair through. So we'd probably like close this up if we were gonna rent it and just keep the one door next to the bathroom. Then I went over to the living room and I shot this little image of the view. So essentially the deal would be that currently the apartment is about 82 square meters. In addition to that, once they knock the building down, they'll build a brand new building and you'll get an apartment that is, instead of being 3 rooms, it'll be 4 rooms. So they'll add an additional room of at least 12 square meters, and that room will be a safe room. And then as well, you would get a 12 square meter balcony, and also I think they said like a 4 square meter kind of storage room that is usually either in like the basement of the building or right outside of your apartment door. There, it's pretty common in Israel for newer buildings to have like a little storage room for you to put like, you know, strollers, bicycles, off-season clothing, things like that, so that they don't just take up space in your apartment. From the moment that they have to knock down the building, they pay you rent until you're able to occupy the new apartment. That is at least helpful, that you're getting the rent in the interim while they're building, which is really nice. The asking price on this home was about 2.6 million shekel. It's not an unfair asking price relative to the market, but I did feel like it needed quite a bit of work. And at that price point, your mortgage is gonna be quite a bit higher than what you can get in rents. And so your out of pocket every month is gonna be like between 6,000 to 9,000 shekel, roughly, depending on the exact price you were able to negotiate. And that just felt like a lot. And that was if you do at least some light renovations, like putting in new floors and painting and, you know, adding that wall in the bedroom where the doorway was really open, things like that. If you did those small renovations, then you would still end up like having to go out of pocket. But in the end, once they did the Pinui Binui and the new construction, you would actually end up getting a home that was worth probably like 3.4 million shekel. So you could get close to 1 million shekel gains on equity if you were able to carry the apartment and the mortgage over that time period. So in terms of investment, it could be a really good investment if you had the capital to put up front. I did discuss about lowering the price a little, and he did say they were flexible and they were willing to negotiate, but they just weren't willing to come to the price point that I wanted in terms of the mortgage that I could personally carry. So it wasn't gonna work out for me. But I do think that if you're someone with the capital to carry a little bit more of a mortgage than what you would get in rents, it could really be a good opportunity. And there's plenty of deals like this in Israel. If you ever want to find a deal like this, my best tip for you is all real estate for the most part goes through a website called Yad Shtayim, and the way that is spelled is YAD and then the number 2, because Shtayim just means 2, .co.il. And then if you have this on Google Chrome, you can use a translator extension through Google Chrome, which will help you because the whole website is in Hebrew. So I do recommend using Google Chrome and using the translation extension. And then you would search by parameters of what you're looking for in terms of buying, in what location, in what price point, how many rooms, etc. And then there's an area where you can customize and put in a specific term that you want the listing to say. And in here, what you want to do is put in these Hebrew letters, which say Pinui or Pinui Binui, and that will mean that any listing that says it is a potential candidate for evacuation construction programs is what you're going to get. Now you have to read these carefully, because just because they say they're a candidate for evacuation construction doesn't mean that they're actually in the signature phase, that there's a contract, that there's a developer, that it's actually gone to the city for approvals. It could just mean that like the owners sometimes talk about, we should do that, right? Which is like not as secure of an investment, because there's no saying whether or not it will ever go to evacuation construction program. It also requires 60% of tenants to agree on it for it to get approvals. And then it's like many years of approvals. It could take like 7 to 10 years before you even see a new building, or like 5 years before they knock down the building, maybe more. So, and that's after they got the 60% approvals, have done all the contracts, have gone to the city and gotten all approvals and everything. Like, it takes time. So I would just read them carefully, and if you're going to inquire about any of them, ask them at what stage it is. Do they have 60% approval? Are there signatures on contracts with the developer already? Has the developer submitted things to the city yet? Things like that. Those are what you want to know. And obviously, the further they get along in these stages, the more valuable the apartment becomes as well. So if you're willing to enter in at an earlier stage before all of these assurances are there, you're probably going to get a better deal on the apartment. But once you get more of these assurances, you're going to slowly pay a little bit more and more because it increases the value of the apartment. So anyways, that's how you find these types of deals. I didn't end up going for this one, but I wanted to share with you guys as an example of the type of really great investment opportunities you can find in real estate in Israel if you have the capital to put up front. If you enjoyed this video, you should subscribe to my channel, and you should watch this next video over here, which YouTube thinks you're really going to enjoy.